In a world of constant chaos, endless notifications, and a relentless pursuit of more, have you ever felt like you're just a passenger in your own life, tossed around by forces beyond your control? You're not alone. We're told to hustle harder, think positive, manifest our dreams, but often this just adds another layer of pressure. What if there was a different way? An ancient, time-tested philosophy designed not to change the world around you, but to change the world within you, giving you an unshakable core of tranquility and purpose. This is the promise of Stoicism. Stoicism isn't about suppressing your emotions or becoming a cold, unfeeling robot. That's a common misconception. Instead, it's a practical guide to living a good life, a life of virtue, resilience, and inner peace. It was practiced by everyone from slaves to emperors, from the Roman statesman Seneca to the Emperor Marcus Aurelius. They faced war, plague, political intrigue, and personal loss, yet they developed a mindset that allowed them to navigate it all with clarity and courage. And the best part? Its principles are as relevant today as they were 2,000 years ago. So, what is the core of this philosophy? It begins with a simple but profound idea, the dichotomy of control. The Stoics taught that we must learn to distinguish between what we can control and what we cannot. Think about it. You can't control the weather, the economy, or what other people think of you. You can't control traffic jams or a delayed flight. Wasting energy worrying, raging, or despairing about these things is, in the Stoic view, a form of self-inflicted suffering. It's like trying to command the tides, a futile and exhausting endeavor. What can you control? Your thoughts, your judgments, your choices, your actions, your character. This is your domain. This is where your power lies. By focusing your energy exclusively on what you can control, you reclaim your agency. You stop being a victim of circumstance and become the master of your own mind. When someone insults you, you can't control their words, but you can control your reaction. You can choose not to be offended. When you face a setback at work, you can't undo the past, but you can control how you learn from it and move forward. This shift in focus is the first step toward building an inner fortress, a citadel that external events cannot breach. This leads us to the second key principle, living in accordance with nature. This doesn't mean you should go live in the woods. For the Stoics, nature meant two things, human nature and the nature of the universe. Human nature, they believed, is to be rational and social. We are at our best when we use our reason to make sound judgments and when we contribute to the well-being of our community. We are social animals, and our own good is intertwined with the good of the whole. This is why Stoics emphasize duties to family, friends, and society. Living in accordance with the nature of the universe means accepting the world as it is, not as you wish it to be. The universe operates according to its own logic, its own logos. Events aren't inherently good or bad, they just are. It's our interpretation, our judgment, that labels them. The Stoics called this the art of acquiescence. It's not passive resignation. It's an active, powerful acceptance of reality. It's understanding that every event, even the ones that seem negative, is part of a larger, interconnected whole. This acceptance frees you from the emotional roller coaster of wishing things were different. So how is this different from the modern self-help industry? While there's some overlap, the fundamental approach is worlds apart. Much of modern self-help focuses on outcomes. It tells you how to get the promotion, the perfect relationship, the seven-figure income. It's about manipulating external reality to fit your desires. The message is often, if you're not happy, it's because you don't have enough. You need to change your circumstances to feel good. Stoicism flips this entirely. It focuses on the process, not the outcome. It teaches that your well-being, your happiness, your tranquility should never depend on externals. Why? Because externals are, by their very nature, unreliable and outside your complete control. If your happiness depends on getting a promotion, what happens when you don't get it? If your peace depends on someone else's approval, what happens when they criticize you? You've handed the keys to your well-being over to someone or something else. The Stoic path is internal. It's about cultivating virtue, wisdom, courage, justice, and temperance. A good life is one lived virtuously, regardless of external circumstances. You could be a billionaire or a prisoner, but if you act with wisdom and courage, you are living a successful life in the Stoic sense. The reward isn't a fancy car. The reward is eudaimonia, a state of flourishing, of deep, meaningful well-being that comes from knowing you are living to your full potential as a rational and virtuous human being. This is a joy that no one can take from you. Let's look at some practical Stoic exercises you can start using today. One is called premeditatio malorum, or the premeditation of evils. This isn't about being pessimistic. It's about being prepared. Every morning, take a moment to imagine things that could go wrong during your day. You might miss your train, have a difficult conversation, or lose your wallet. By mentally rehearsing these scenarios, you do two things. First, you strip them of their power to shock and destabilize you. If something does happen, you've already considered it, and you'll be able to respond with a calm, rational mind instead of a panicked one. Second, it cultivates gratitude. If you go through your day and none of these things happen, you'll appreciate your good fortune so much more. Another powerful exercise is the view from above. When you're feeling overwhelmed by your own problems, take a moment to zoom out. Imagine yourself in your room, then in your city, then your country. See the whole planet, a tiny blue marble floating in the vastness of space. Then zoom out further across the solar system, the galaxy, until your personal dramas seem infinitesimally small. This isn't to say your problems don't matter, but it puts them in perspective. It reminds you that you are part of something much, much larger, and it can help dissolve the ego and the anxiety that comes with it. The modern world bombards us with the idea that happiness is something to be chased and captured. It's a destination. It doesn't offer easy answers, but it offers a solid foundation. It's a philosophy for life, not just for a crisis. It teaches you how to be resilient in the face of adversity, how to find meaning in your duties, and how to cultivate a quiet, unshakable peace in a loud, chaotic world. So the next time you feel a wave of anxiety, anger, or despair, remember the dichotomy of control. Ask yourself, is this something I can influence? If the answer is no, then practice acceptance. Let it go. If the answer is yes, then focus all your energy there. Act with reason, with courage, and with virtue. This is the path of the Stoic. It's not about being emotionless. It's about not being a slave to your emotions. It is about building a character so strong and a mind so clear that no matter what storms life throws at you, your inner citadel remains standing, calm, and secure. Thank you for watching. If this philosophy resonates with you, I encourage you to explore it further. Read the works of Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, and Epictetus. Start practicing these principles in your daily life. It may just be the key to the stable, meaningful existence you've been searching for. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments below. If you walk into any bookstore today, you will notice something immediately. Entire shelves are filled with books promising a better life. Some promise wealth. Others promise confidence. Some promise success, productivity, happiness, or transformation. The titles are bold. The covers are eye-catching. The language is simple and direct. Think rich, win friends, unlock your potential, master your mind. Become unstoppable. These promises are powerful because they speak directly to the quiet dissatisfaction inside the human mind. They tell people that their struggles are not permanent. They suggest that change is possible. And most importantly, they offer hope. Hope is one of the most powerful forces in human life. It gives people the strength to keep going. It gives them direction. It gives them energy. And the self-help industry understands this very well. Over the past century, self-help has grown from a small collection of books into a massive global industry. It includes seminars, courses, podcasts, online coaching, motivational speakers, social media influencers, and countless videos. Every day, millions of people consume self-help content in one form or another. This industry exists because the demand is real. People want to improve their lives. They want to feel confident, successful, and fulfilled. They want solutions to their problems. They want clarity in a confusing world. But there is an important question that is rarely asked. If self-help is so popular, and if so many people consume it, why do so many people still feel lost, anxious, and dissatisfied? Why does the same person watch motivational videos every week, yet remain stuck in the same habits? Why do people feel inspired after reading a self-help book, only to return to their old routines a few days later? Why does the motivation fade so quickly? To understand this, we need to look at how modern self-help is structured. Most modern self-help is built around emotional energy. It tries to create excitement, urgency, and inspiration. It uses powerful language and dramatic stories. It focuses on success, achievement, and transformation. It tells you that your life can change quickly if you just think differently. This approach works in the short term. It creates a surge of motivation. It makes people feel powerful and capable. It gives them the sense that change is just around the corner. But motivation is not stable. It is emotional. And emotions are temporary by nature. Think about how you feel after watching a powerful motivational video. For a moment, everything seems possible. You feel strong. You feel determined. You imagine your future success. You may even start planning new goals or routines. But what happens a few days later? The emotional energy fades. Life becomes ordinary again. The excitement disappears. And without that emotional energy, the motivation disappears too. This is one of the biggest weaknesses of modern self-help. It often relies too heavily on feelings. It tries to change your life by changing your emotional state rather than your habits or principles. Feelings are unstable. They rise and fall. They change from day to day and sometimes from hour to hour. If your actions depend on your feelings, your actions will also be unstable. This creates a cycle that many people experience. First, they feel unmotivated or dissatisfied. Then they consume self-help content. They feel inspired and energized. They start new habits or goals. The motivation fades. They return to old behaviors. They feel frustrated. And then they search for more self-help content. This cycle can repeat for years, sometimes for decades. The person becomes a consumer of motivation rather than a practitioner of change. The self-help industry, in many cases, unintentionally encourages this cycle. Because the industry itself depends on people continuing to feel dissatisfied. If everyone suddenly became calm, disciplined, and content, the demand for constant motivational content would decrease. This does not mean all self-help is dishonest or harmful. Many books and teachers offer genuinely useful advice. Some self-help content provides structure, clarity, and practical tools. But the overall culture of modern self-help often focuses more on emotional excitement than long-term discipline. Another important aspect of modern self-help is its obsession with success. Many self-help messages revolve around achievement. They encourage people to become richer, more productive, more influential, more attractive, or more powerful. Success is presented as the ultimate goal. But this approach creates a subtle problem. When success becomes the goal, failure becomes a threat. It becomes something to fear, something to avoid, something that damages your sense of worth. If your value depends on your achievements, then every failure feels like a personal defeat. Every setback feels like proof that you are not good enough. This creates anxiety. It creates pressure. It creates constant comparison with others. Social media has intensified this problem. People now see carefully curated images of other people's success every day. They see luxury lifestyles, perfect routines, perfect bodies, and constant achievement. They begin to feel that they are falling behind. Modern self-help often reinforces this comparison. It shows stories of extreme success. It highlights millionaires, entrepreneurs, athletes, and influencers. It tells people that they should aim for extraordinary results. But not everyone will become a millionaire. Not everyone will build a massive business. Not everyone will achieve fame or recognition. And when people realize this, they may begin to feel like failures, even if their lives are perfectly decent and meaningful. This is where Stoicism takes a radically different approach. Stoicism does not measure life by success. It measures life by character. It does not ask, how much did you achieve? It asks, how did you behave? Did you act with honesty? Did you show courage when things were difficult? Did you treat others with fairness? Did you remain disciplined in your responsibilities? If the answer is yes, then according to Stoicism, you have lived well regardless of your external success. This idea removes a tremendous amount of pressure from life. You no longer need to become extraordinary to feel worthy. You only need to act with virtue. Another key difference between modern self-help and Stoicism is their relationship with control. Modern self-help often promotes the idea that you can control your destiny completely. It encourages you to believe that you can achieve anything if you think positively and work hard enough. While effort and mindset are important, this idea can become unrealistic. Life is full of variables you cannot control. You cannot control the economy. You cannot control other people's decisions. You cannot control accidents, illness, or sudden changes. When people believe they should be able to control everything, they become frustrated when reality does not cooperate. Stoicism offers a simpler and more realistic view. It divides life into two categories: things you can control and things you cannot control. You can control your actions, your thoughts, your choices, and your responses. You cannot control outcomes, other people, or external events. This idea may seem obvious, but many people live as if everything is under their control. They become angry when plans fail. They become anxious about the future. They become upset about other people's opinions. Stoicism teaches that this is a mistake. It says that peace comes from focusing only on what you can control and accepting everything else. This does not mean giving up. It means doing your best while understanding that the result is not entirely up to you. Modern self-help often promises control. Stoicism teaches acceptance. Modern self-help says, you can shape the world to fit your desires. Stoicism says, you can shape your mind to handle the world. And this difference is crucial, because the world will not always cooperate with your desires. Plans will fail. People will disappoint you. Circumstances will change. If your peace depends on everything going according to plan, you will suffer constantly. But if your peace depends on your character and your responses, you become stable. This is why Stoicism has lasted for over 2,000 years. It does not depend on trends, excitement, or emotional energy. It is built on principles that remain true in every era. Modern self-help may change with time. New techniques appear. New trends rise and fall. New motivational speakers gain popularity and then disappear. But the Stoic principles remain the same. Focus on what you can control. Accept what you cannot. Act with virtue in every situation. These ideas are simple, but they are not easy. They require practice. They require discipline. They require patience, and that is why they actually work. Because they are not based on temporary emotions. They are based on reality. Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Today, we're diving deep into a philosophy that's been making a huge comeback. Stoicism. You see it everywhere now in self-help books, productivity hacks, and even on social media. But where did this powerful mindset actually come from? To truly understand Stoicism, we need to travel back in time, way back to ancient Greece and Rome. So grab your notebooks, get comfortable, and let's explore the fascinating ancient roots of Stoicism together. Our story begins not in a grand university or a royal court, but in the bustling marketplace of Athens around 300 BC. This marketplace, known as the Agora, was the heart of the city, a vibrant hub of commerce, politics, and most importantly, ideas. It was here that a merchant named Zeno of Citium, a city in modern-day Cyprus, found himself after a shipwreck had cost him everything. With his fortune lost to the sea, Zeno wandered into a bookstore and picked up a copy of Xenophon's Memorabilia, a book about the life and teachings of Socrates. He was so captivated by Socrates' character and wisdom that he asked the bookseller where he could find men like him. The bookseller pointed to a famous philosopher passing by, Crates the Cynic, and said, "Follow that man." And so, Zeno's philosophical journey began. Zeno studied under Crates and other great thinkers of his time, but he wasn't content to just follow existing schools of thought. He started to develop his own unique philosophy, a practical guide to living a good life. He would teach from a public colonnade in the Agora, a porch known as the Stoa Poikile, which means painted porch. It's from this very location, the Stoa, that his philosophy got its name, Stoicism. The followers of Zeno became known as the Stoics, the people of the porch. It is amazing to think that a philosophy practiced by millions today started with a group of people gathering on a public porch, freely discussing how to live well. So, what were they talking about on that painted porch? At its core, early Stoicism, as taught by Zeno and his successors like Cleanthes and Chrysippus, was about living in agreement with nature. But what does that mean? For the Stoics, it meant two things. First, it meant understanding the nature of the universe. They believed the cosmos was a rational, ordered, and divinely organized whole, guided by a universal reason they called the Logos. Everything happens for a reason as part of this grand, interconnected plan. The second part was about understanding our own human nature. They believed our defining characteristic is our ability to reason. Therefore, to live in agreement with nature is to use our reason to understand the world and our place in it, and to act virtuously in accordance with that understanding. A central pillar of their teaching was the famous dichotomy of control. This is the idea that some things in life are within our control and some things are not. Our thoughts, our judgments, our choices, our actions, these are up to us. But external events, what other people say or do, our health, our wealth, the weather, these are ultimately outside our direct control. The Stoics argued that the key to a tranquil and happy life, what they called eudaimonia, was to focus all our energy on what we can control and to accept what we can, not with grace and indifference. This doesn't mean being passive. It means acting with courage and virtue within your sphere of influence, and not letting external events disturb your inner peace. From its humble beginnings in Athens, Stoicism began to spread. Its practical, down-to-earth wisdom resonated with many, and it eventually found its way to Rome. It was in the Roman Empire that Stoicism truly flourished and where some of its most famous figures emerged. The philosophy that began on a public porch was now being discussed in the halls of power and embraced by people from all walks of life, from slaves to senators. The Roman Stoics were less concerned with the physics and logic of the early Greeks and more focused on the ethics, the practical application of Stoic principles in daily life. This is where the philosophy really becomes a hands-on toolkit for resilience. Let's talk about three giants of Roman Stoicism whose writings have survived and continue to inspire us. First, there's Seneca the Younger. Seneca was a fascinating character, a hugely wealthy playwright, a political advisor to the infamous Emperor Nero, and a prolific writer. His letters and essays are like a personal coaching session in Stoicism. He wrote about managing anger, dealing with grief, making the most of our short time on earth, and facing adversity. Seneca's life was turbulent, and he was eventually forced to take his own life by Nero. But his writings show us how he used Stoic principles to navigate the extreme highs and lows of his life with reason and courage. Next, we have Epictetus. His story is one of the most powerful in all of philosophy. Epictetus was born a slave in the Roman Empire. He endured incredible hardship, including a permanently lamed leg, allegedly broken by his master. After gaining his freedom, he became a renowned Stoic teacher. Because he was a former slave, his perspective on what is and isn't in our control is incredibly potent. He taught that even if your body is enslaved, your mind, your will, and your power of choice can always remain free. His teachings, transcribed by his student Arrian in works called the Discourses and the Enchiridion, or Handbook, are blunt, direct, and incredibly practical. He constantly reminds his students to distinguish between their impressions and reality, and to focus solely on their own virtuous actions. And finally, we have perhaps the most famous Stoic of all, Marcus Aurelius, the Roman Emperor. Imagine that the most powerful man in the world, a philosopher king. His book, Meditations, was never meant for publication. It was his private journal, a series of personal notes he wrote to himself while on military campaigns, managing a vast empire and dealing with plagues and wars. In its pages we see him reminding himself of Stoic principles, to be tolerant of others, to act for the common good, to accept his fate, and to start each day by preparing for the difficult people he might encounter. Reading Meditations feels like looking over the shoulder of an emperor as he coaches himself through the immense pressures of his life. The fact that he needed these reminders shows that Stoicism isn't about being perfect. It's a lifelong practice. So, from a shipwrecked merchant in Athens to a Roman emperor on the battlefield, the journey of ancient Stoicism is incredible. It evolved from a complex system of logic, physics, and ethics into a practical, personal philosophy for navigating the challenges of human existence. It is a philosophy born from adversity and refined in the crucible of real life by some of history's most compelling figures. When we read their words today, we're not just reading old texts. We're reconnecting with a timeless tradition of wisdom that is just as relevant now as it was 2,000 years ago. Understanding these roots helps us see that Stoicism isn't just a life hack. It's a robust, time-tested philosophy for living a life of virtue, resilience, and inner peace. Thanks so much for joining me on this journey back in time. I hope this gives you a deeper appreciation for where this amazing philosophy comes from. If you enjoyed this video and want to learn more about Stoicism and other philosophies for a better life, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Let me know in the comments which ancient Stoic you find most inspiring: Zeno, Seneca, Epictetus, or Marcus Aurelius. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Until next time, stay curious and keep learning. In the modern world, success has become one of the most powerful ideas in human life. It is everywhere. It appears in advertisements, in movies, on social media, in conversations, and especially in self-help content. People are constantly told that they must become more successful, more productive, more influential, more wealthy, more accomplished. Success is presented as the ultimate goal, the final destination, the place where happiness, confidence, and peace finally exist. From a young age, people are taught to chase success. In school, They are told to get good grades so they can enter good universities. In university, they are told to build strong careers. In their careers, they are told to climb higher, earn more, and achieve more. At every stage, the message is the same. Keep moving forward, keep achieving, keep succeeding. And yet, something strange happens. Many people who achieve what they once dreamed of still feel empty. They reach their goals and the satisfaction lasts only a short time. Then a new goal appears, a higher level, a bigger success. The cycle never ends. This is because success, by its nature, is unstable. It depends on external factors. It depends on money, recognition, opportunities, timing, and sometimes even luck. And because these things are outside your control, success can never provide lasting peace. The Stoics understood this deeply. They saw how easily wealth could disappear. They saw how quickly political power could change. They saw how fame could rise and fall. Instead of building their lives around success, they built their lives around virtue. Virtue, in Stoic philosophy, means living with wisdom, courage, justice, and discipline. It means acting with integrity, even when it is difficult. It means doing what is right, regardless of the outcome. This idea creates a completely different way of living. When success is your goal, your happiness depends on results. If you succeed, you feel good. If you fail, you feel defeated. Your emotional state rises and falls with your achievements. But when virtue is your goal, your happiness depends on your actions, not your results. As long as you act with integrity, courage, and discipline, you have succeeded in the only way that truly matters. You may fail at a task, but still succeed as a person. You may lose money, but still keep your dignity. You may face rejection, but still act with courage. In this way, virtue creates a stable foundation for life. Modern self-help often encourages people to think in terms of outcomes. It asks questions like, how much money do you make? How many followers do you have? How productive are you? How successful is your business? But Stoicism asks very different questions. Did you act with honesty today? Did you remain calm under pressure? Did you treat others fairly? Did you stay disciplined in your duties? These questions are not about external success. They are about internal character. And the most important difference is this. External success is not fully under your control, but your character is. You can work hard and still fail. You can be talented and still be overlooked. You can do everything right and still lose. But you always have control over your actions. You always have the choice to act with integrity. You always have the choice to show courage. You always have the choice to remain disciplined. This is why the Stoics believed that virtue was the only true good in life. Everything else, wealth, health, status, comfort, was considered preferred, but not essential. These things were nice to have, but they were not necessary for a good life. A person could be poor, yet virtuous. A person could be sick, yet dignified. A person could face hardship, yet remain strong. And according to Stoicism, such a person was truly successful. This idea may seem strange in a world obsessed with achievement, but it is incredibly freeing. When success is defined by external results, life becomes a constant competition. You are always comparing yourself to others. You are always worried about falling behind. You are always chasing the next level. But when success is defined by virtue, the competition disappears. Your only focus is on your own actions, your own character, your own choices. No one can take that away from you. Another problem with success-focused thinking is that it often leads people to sacrifice their values. When success becomes the ultimate goal, people may lie, cheat, manipulate, or betray others to achieve it. History is full of examples of successful people who lacked character. People who gained wealth or power, but caused harm along the way. Their success did not bring peace. It often brought regret, anxiety, and conflict. The Stoics believed that success without virtue was meaningless. They believed it was better to fail with integrity than to succeed through dishonesty. This idea challenges many modern assumptions. Today, people often admire those who achieve the most, regardless of how they achieved it. But the Stoics would ask a different question. Not what did they achieve, but who did they become in the process? Because success that destroys your character is not true success, it is a form of failure. Another important difference is how each approach deals with failure. In a success-focused mindset, failure feels like a personal defeat. It feels like proof that you are not good enough. It damages your confidence. It creates fear and hesitation. But in a virtue-focused mindset, failure is simply part of life. It is not a threat to your identity. As long as you acted with integrity and discipline, you have not truly failed. You may lose the game, but you kept your character. You may miss the opportunity, but you kept your courage. You may face rejection, but you stayed honest. And in the Stoic view, that is what truly matters. This perspective creates resilience. It removes the fear of failure. It allows you to act boldly because your worth is not tied to the outcome. Modern self-help often says, you must succeed to feel confident. Stoicism says, act with virtue and confidence will follow. This confidence is different. It is quieter. It does not depend on praise or recognition. It comes from knowing that you are acting in alignment with your principles. You do not need the world's approval. You only need your own respect. And that kind of confidence is far more stable. The Stoics did not reject success entirely. They did not say wealth or achievement were bad. They simply refused to build their happiness on those things. They saw success as a byproduct of good character, not the goal itself. If success came, they accepted it with humility. If success did not come, they remained calm, because their peace did not depend on it. This is one of the most powerful lessons Stoicism offers. It shifts the focus from outcomes to actions, from results to character, from success to virtue. And when you make that shift, something surprising happens. You become less anxious. You become more consistent. You become more resilient, because your sense of worth is no longer tied to things you cannot control. Instead of chasing success, you begin building character. And character is something that cannot easily be taken away. In a world obsessed with results, this idea may seem quiet and simple, but it is incredibly powerful, because success is uncertain, but virtue is always within reach. And in the Stoic view, that is what actually works. In the modern world, motivation is treated almost like a magical force. It is presented as the key to success, productivity, confidence, and happiness. People are told that if they feel motivated enough, they can achieve anything. Entire industries exist to create that feeling. Motivational videos, podcasts, books, and seminars all aim to produce the same result. They try to ignite an emotional fire inside the listener. They try to create excitement, urgency, and belief. And for a short time, they often succeed. A person listens to a powerful speech. They hear dramatic music. They see stories of incredible success. Their heart beats faster. Their mind fills with visions of a better future. They feel energized and ready to act. But that energy is temporary. Motivation is like a spark. It burns bright, but it does not last long. Without something to sustain it, the spark fades. And when the motivation fades, the action often fades with it. This is one of the biggest differences between modern self-help and Stoicism. Modern self-help often tries to build a life on motivation. Stoicism builds a life on discipline. To understand this difference, imagine two people who both want to improve their lives. The first person waits for motivation. They only act when they feel inspired. On days when they feel excited, they work hard. They exercise, study, and stay focused. But on days when they feel tired or discouraged, they do nothing. Their actions depend entirely on their emotions. The second person relies on discipline. They have decided what their duties are, and they follow through regardless of how they feel. Some days they feel motivated. Other days they feel tired or uninspired, but they continue their routine anyway. At the end of a year, the difference between these two people becomes clear. The first person has made inconsistent progress. They had moments of intense effort, but also long periods of inactivity. The second person has made steady progress. Their effort was not dramatic, but it was consistent. Consistency is more powerful than intensity. The Stoics understood this deeply. They knew that emotions are unstable. They knew that motivation rises and falls. And because of that, they refused to build their lives around it. Instead, they focused on discipline. Discipline, in the Stoic sense, is not about punishment or harsh rules. It is about alignment. It is about training your actions to match your values. It is about doing what is right, even when it is difficult. Discipline is not emotional. It does not depend on excitement. It is built on reason and habit. Motivation asks, do I feel like doing this? Discipline asks, is this the right thing to do? Motivation is guided by feelings. Discipline is guided by principles. This difference may seem small, but it changes everything. If your life depends on motivation, your progress will be unstable. You will move forward when you feel good and stop when you feel bad. Your habits will come and go. Your goals will change with your emotions. But if your life depends on discipline, your progress becomes steady. You act based on your decisions, not your moods. You continue even when you feel tired, bored, or discouraged. This creates a powerful kind of stability. The Stoics believe that the mind, like the body, must be trained. Just as a person becomes physically strong through repeated exercise, a person becomes mentally strong through repeated acts of discipline. Every time you choose discipline over comfort, you strengthen your character. Every time you stay calm instead of reacting with anger, you build emotional control. Every time you act with honesty instead of convenience, you strengthen your integrity. These small choices, repeated daily, shape the kind of person you become. Modern self-help often focuses on big, dramatic changes. It encouraged people to set massive goals, create intense routines, and transform their lives overnight. But the Stoics believed in gradual improvement. They understood that real change is slow. It is built through small, consistent actions over long periods of time. Imagine a drop of water falling on a stone. One drop does nothing, but thousands of drops over time can shape the stone. Discipline works in the same way. One disciplined action may seem small, but repeated daily, it reshapes your character. Another problem with motivation is that it often creates unrealistic expectations. Motivational content tends to show extreme success stories. It highlights people who achieved extraordinary results. It focuses on dramatic transformations. This creates the impression that change should be fast and exciting. But real life rarely works that way. Most growth is quiet. Most progress is slow. Most success is built on ordinary days, not extraordinary moments. The Stoics embraced this reality. They did not seek excitement. They sought consistency. They believed that a good life was built through daily practice, not through bursts of motivation, but through steady discipline. They practiced self-control in small things. They paid attention to their thoughts. They reflected on their actions. They trained themselves to respond calmly to difficulty. These practices were not exciting. They were not dramatic, but they were effective. Modern motivation often focuses on how you feel before you act. It tries to create the right emotional state first. Stoicism takes the opposite approach. It focuses on action first. Instead of waiting to feel motivated, the Stoic acts according to reason. And often, something surprising happens. The feeling of motivation appears after the action, not before it. A person may not feel like exercising, but after they start, they feel better. A person may not feel like studying, but once they begin, their focus improves. A person may not feel like working, but after an hour, they gain momentum. Action creates motivation, not the other way around. This is a crucial idea. It removes the need to wait for the perfect emotional state. It frees you from dependence on inspiration. You do not need to feel ready. You only need to begin. Another important difference between motivation and discipline is how they handle difficult days. On good days, motivation feels strong. Everything seems possible. But on bad days, motivation disappears. And when it disappears, the person who depends on it feels lost. Discipline, however, works even on bad days. You may feel tired, but you still follow your routine. You may feel discouraged, but you still act with integrity. You may feel anxious, but you still do your duty. Discipline does not require a good mood. It only requires commitment. This is why discipline creates resilience. It prepares you for difficult times. It gives you something stable to rely on when emotions are unstable. The Stoics believed that life would always contain hardship. They did not expect constant happiness or motivation. They expected challenges, obstacles, and setbacks. And because they expected these things, they prepared for them. They trained their minds to remain steady, even when life became difficult. Modern self-help often promises a life of excitement, success, and happiness. Stoicism promises something different. It promises strength to endure hardship, strength to remain calm in chaos, strength to act with virtue even when it is difficult, and that strength comes from discipline. Motivation may help you start, but discipline is what carries you through the long, ordinary days that make up most of life. Motivation is a spark. Discipline is a steady flame. Motivation is loud and exciting. Discipline is quiet and consistent. Motivation comes and goes. Discipline remains. This is why the Stoics place their trust in discipline rather than motivation, because discipline is what actually works when life becomes hard. And life, sooner or later, always becomes hard. One of the greatest sources of human suffering is the desire to control things that cannot be controlled. People worry about the future, try to control the opinions of others, fear the loss of status, and become angry when events do not go according to plan. Much of this suffering comes from a simple misunderstanding of reality. The modern self-help world often tells people that they can shape their destiny completely. It encourages the belief that with enough effort, positive thinking, and determination, anything is possible. It suggests that the world can be bent to your will if only you think strongly enough. While this message can be inspiring, it can also be misleading. Because the truth is, much of life is outside your control. You cannot control the weather. You cannot control the economy. You cannot control other people's thoughts or actions. You cannot control the past. And you cannot fully control the future. No matter how hard you try, there will always be events, circumstances, and outcomes that are beyond your influence. The Stoics understood this reality very clearly. They believed that peace begins with a simple distinction: the difference between what is within your control and what is not. Epictetus, one of the most influential Stoic teachers, said that some things are up to us and some things are not. This idea became the foundation of Stoic practice. According to Stoicism, there are only a few things truly within your control: your thoughts, your choices, your actions, your responses to events. These are the things that belong to you. Everything else is outside your control. Your reputation, your wealth, your physical health, other people's opinions, and most external outcomes are not entirely up to you. This distinction may seem simple, but it is incredibly powerful. Most people spend their lives worrying about things they cannot control. They worry about what others think of them. They worry about events that may or may not happen. They worry about outcomes that depend on many different factors. This constant worry creates anxiety, frustration, and stress. It drains mental energy. It makes life feel unstable. Stoicism offers a different approach. It teaches that you should focus your energy only on what is within your control and accept everything else. This does not mean giving up. It does not mean becoming passive or careless. It means giving your best effort to your actions, while understanding that the results are not entirely up to you. For example, imagine you are preparing for an important exam. You can control how much you study. You can control your focus, your effort, and your preparation. But you cannot control the exact questions on the exam. You cannot control the difficulty level. You cannot control the grading system. If you attach your peace to the outcome, you will feel anxious. You will worry about things outside your control. But if you focus on your effort, your preparation, and your discipline, you will feel calmer. You cannot control the result, but you can control your actions. This idea applies to every part of life. In relationships, you cannot control how someone feels about you, but you can control how you treat them. In your career, you cannot control every opportunity or decision made by others, but you can control your work ethic and integrity. In public situations, you cannot control what people say about you, but you can control your response. When you accept this distinction, something powerful happens. You stop wasting energy on things you cannot change. Your mind becomes clearer. Your actions become more focused. Modern self-help often encourages people to control everything. It tells them to visualize success, manifest their desires, and shape reality according to their thoughts. While mindset is important, this approach can create unrealistic expectations. When people believe they should be able to control everything, they become frustrated when reality does not cooperate. They begin to blame themselves for events that were never fully under their control. Stoicism removes this burden. It tells you that you are responsible only for your actions, not for every outcome. This idea creates a deep sense of freedom. You are free from the pressure of controlling everything. You are free from the fear of uncertain outcomes. You are free from the anxiety of other people's opinions, because you realize that these things were never truly yours to control. Imagine how much lighter life would feel if you stopped worrying about things outside your control. If you no longer felt the need to impress everyone. If you no longer feared every possible future problem. Instead of worrying about outcomes, you would focus on your actions. Instead of fearing others' opinions, you would focus on your character. This is the Stoic path. Another important aspect of this idea is acceptance. The Stoics believe that resisting reality creates unnecessary suffering. When something unpleasant happens, people often react with anger or frustration. They say, "This shouldn't have happened." They fight against reality. But reality does not change just because we dislike it. The Stoics taught that it is better to accept what has happened and focus on what you can do next. Acceptance does not mean approval. It does not mean you like the situation. It simply means you acknowledge reality as it is, rather than as you wish it were. For example, if you lose your job, you can spend weeks being angry at the situation, or you can accept it and begin looking for solutions. The anger does not change the reality, but acceptance allows you to move forward. Marcus Aurelius wrote that a blazing fire takes whatever you throw into it and turns it into flame. In the same way, a strong mind can take obstacles and turn them into fuel for growth. This is the Stoic approach. Instead of fighting reality, you use it, you adapt to it, you grow from it. Modern self-help often encourages control. Stoicism encourages alignment with reality. Modern self-help says, make the world fit your desires. Stoicism says, Train your mind to handle the world as it is. This approach is more realistic. And because it is more realistic, it creates more lasting peace. When you focus only on what you can control, life becomes simpler. Your priorities become clearer. You stop chasing approval. You stop fearing every possible outcome. You simply ask yourself one question: what is the right action for me to take right now? Not, will this succeed? Not, what will people think? Not, what if things go wrong? Just, what is the right action? And then you take it. This simple shift in thinking can transform your entire life. It removes unnecessary stress. It creates mental clarity. It builds resilience. Because once you accept that you cannot control everything, you stop trying to. And in that acceptance, you find freedom. In modern self-help, one of the most common pieces of advice is simple: think positively. You are told to focus on good outcomes, imagine success, and avoid negative thoughts. The idea is that your thoughts shape your reality, and that by maintaining a positive mindset, you can attract better results into your life. This idea is appealing. It feels comforting. It gives people hope. It tells them that by simply changing their thoughts, they can change their lives. But there is a problem with constant positive thinking. Life is not always positive. Difficulties happen. Loss happens. Disappointment happens. And when a person has trained themselves to expect only positive outcomes, they are often unprepared when reality becomes difficult. This is where Stoicism offers a very different approach. Instead of focusing only on positive outcomes, the Stoics practice something called negative visualization. At first, this idea may sound strange, even uncomfortable. Why would anyone intentionally think about negative events? Why imagine loss, hardship, or difficulty? But the Stoics did not practice negative visualization to make themselves sad. They did it to make themselves stronger, calmer, and more grateful. Negative visualization is the practice of imagining that the things you value could be taken away. You imagine losing your possessions, your comfort, your status, or even the people you love. Not to create fear, but to remind yourself that everything in life is temporary. This practice serves two powerful purposes. First, it builds gratitude. When you remember that something is not guaranteed, you begin to appreciate it more. You stop taking it for granted. You become more present. You value what you have instead of constantly wishing for more. Imagine waking up each day with the awareness that your home, your health, or your loved ones are not permanent. You would likely treat them with more care. You would feel more appreciation for ordinary moments. Gratitude does not come from having everything you want. It comes from realizing that what you already have could disappear. The second purpose of negative visualization is emotional preparation. When you imagine difficult situations in advance, they become less frightening. Your mind becomes familiar with the possibility of loss. And when something actually goes wrong, you are not completely shocked. Modern self-help often tries to remove negative thoughts entirely. It tells people to avoid thinking about failure, loss, or hardship. But this can leave the mind unprepared. If a person spends years imagining only success, then a single failure can feel devastating. If they expect life to always go smoothly, even small problems can feel overwhelming. The Stoics believed it was wiser to prepare for difficulty, not in a pessimistic way, but in a realistic way. They understood that life is unpredictable. People change. Circumstances shift. Health can decline. Opportunities can disappear. These things are part of the human experience. By accepting this reality, the Stoics removed much of the fear surrounding it. If you already understand that loss is possible, you are less shocked when it happens. You may still feel sadness or disappointment, but you will not feel completely destroyed. Negative visualization builds emotional resilience. It trains the mind to face reality rather than hide from it. Another benefit of this practice is that it reduces anxiety about the future. Much of human anxiety comes from imagining worst-case scenarios. People worry about losing their job, their relationships, their health, or their status. But when you deliberately imagine these scenarios in a calm and controlled way, something surprising happens. The fear begins to lose its power. You realize that even in difficult situations, life continues. You imagine yourself adapting, adjusting, and moving forward. You begin to see that hardship is not the end of everything. This creates a quiet confidence. Not the loud confidence of motivational speeches, but a steady confidence that comes from preparedness. You begin to understand that you can handle more than you think. Modern positive thinking often tries to eliminate discomfort by denying it. Stoicism reduces discomfort by preparing for it. Modern self-help says, don't think about bad things. Focus only on the positive. Stoicism says, understand that bad things may happen and train your mind to handle them. This difference is important. Positive thinking can be helpful in certain situations. It can boost confidence, reduce stress, and create optimism. But when it becomes unrealistic, it can lead to disappointment. If you expect life to always be positive, reality will eventually contradict that belief. And when it does, the emotional impact may be stronger. Stoicism does not deny that life contains joy and beauty, but it also acknowledges that life contains hardship and loss. By accepting both, the Stoics created a more balanced and realistic philosophy. Another aspect of negative visualization is its effect on desire. Modern self-help often encourages people to want more success, more wealth, more achievements, more recognition. This constant desire can create dissatisfaction, because no matter how much you achieve, there is always more to want. The Stoics believe that happiness comes not from having more, but from wanting less. When you imagine losing what you have, you begin to appreciate it. And when you appreciate what you have, your desire for more begins to calm down. You realize that many of the things you chase are not necessary for a good life. You may not need luxury to feel content. You may not need fame to feel valuable. You may not need constant success to feel fulfilled. This realization creates a deep sense of freedom. You are no longer controlled by endless desires. You are no longer chasing happiness in the future. You begin to feel content in the present. Negative visualization also strengthens courage. When you imagine difficult situations, you begin to see yourself facing them. You picture yourself staying calm, acting with discipline, and responding with wisdom. Over time, this mental practice makes you more confident in your ability to handle real challenges. Athletes use a similar technique. They visualize difficult situations in competition so they are mentally prepared. Soldiers train for worst-case scenarios so they can remain calm in real danger. The Stoics applied this same idea to everyday life. They trained their minds to face loss, discomfort, and uncertainty. And because of that, they were less shaken when those things actually happened. This does not mean they were emotionless. They still felt sadness, disappointment, and grief. But they were not overwhelmed by those emotions. They had prepared their minds. Modern positive thinking often tries to remove all negative emotions. Stoicism accepts that negative emotions are part of life, but teaches you how to handle them with strength and clarity. Positive thinking says, everything will work out. Stoicism says, even if things don't work out, you can still remain strong. This idea creates a deeper form of confidence. It is not based on the belief that life will always be easy. It is based on the belief that you can handle whatever life brings. And that is a far more reliable form of confidence. In the end, negative visualization is not about expecting the worst. It is about appreciating the present and preparing for the future. It is about reducing fear, increasing gratitude, and building resilience. It reminds you that everything is temporary. And because everything is temporary, every moment becomes more valuable. This is the Stoic approach. Not blind optimism and not hopeless pessimism, but clear, realistic awareness. And that awareness is what actually works. Failure is one of the most feared experiences in human life. From an early age, people are taught to avoid it. In school, failure means bad grades. In work, failure means missed opportunities or lost income. In relationships, failure can mean rejection or heartbreak. Everywhere, failure is treated like something shameful, something to hide, something to escape at all costs. Modern self-help often tries to soften this fear by saying that failure is just a stepping stone to success. It tells people that every successful person has failed, and that failure is simply part of the journey. This message can be helpful, but it still assumes that success is the ultimate goal. In this view, failure is only acceptable if it eventually leads to success. If success never comes, the failure still feels painful and meaningless. Stoicism offers a completely different perspective. To the Stoics, failure is not measured by outcomes. It is measured by character. In modern thinking, if you try something and it does not work, you have failed. But in Stoic thinking, if you acted with wisdom, courage, justice, and discipline, then you have not truly failed, regardless of the result. This idea changes everything. Imagine two people who both apply for an important position. The first person lies, manipulates, and cheats to gain an advantage and eventually gets the job. The second person acts honestly, works hard, and behaves with integrity, but does not get selected. In modern terms, the first person succeeded and the second person failed. But in Stoic terms, the opposite may be true. The first person gained the outcome, but damaged their character. The second person lost the outcome, but preserved their virtue. And according to Stoicism, character is far more important than outcomes. This perspective removes the fear of failure. Because if your worth is not tied to results, you are free to act boldly. You are free to try new things, take risks, and face challenges without constantly worrying about the outcome. The Stoics believe that the only true failure is a failure of character. If you act dishonestly, you have failed. If you act cowardly when courage is needed, you have failed. If you betray your values for comfort or success, you have failed. But if you act with integrity, courage, and discipline, you have succeeded in the only way that truly matters. This idea creates resilience. It allows a person to face setbacks without losing their sense of worth. Modern self-help often encourages people to tie their confidence to their achievements. It tells them to build self-esteem through success. But this creates a fragile form of confidence. If your confidence depends on success, it will disappear when you fail. And since failure is inevitable at some point, your confidence will always be at risk. Stoicism builds confidence in a different way. It ties confidence to character, not outcomes. When you know that you will act with integrity, no matter what happens, you develop a quiet, steady confidence. You trust your own character. You trust your ability to respond with wisdom and discipline. This confidence does not disappear when you fail, because it is not based on success. The Stoics also believed that failure is a natural part of life. They did not expect everything to go smoothly. They understood that life is unpredictable and that setbacks are inevitable. Marcus Aurelius, the Emperor of Rome, faced constant war, political conflict, and disease. His reign was filled with challenges. And yet, in his private writings, he reminded himself that obstacles are part of the path. He believed that difficulties were not interruptions of life, but part of life itself. This idea is powerful. When you expect life to be easy, failure feels like a shock. It feels unfair. It feels like something has gone terribly wrong. But when you expect life to include difficulty, failure becomes less surprising. It becomes something you are mentally prepared for. The Stoics often viewed obstacles as opportunities for growth. They believed that hardship reveals character. It shows you who you really are. Anyone can appear strong when life is easy. Anyone can appear kind when there is no pressure. Anyone can appear confident when everything is going well. But real character is revealed in difficult moments. Do you remain calm when things go wrong? Do you act with integrity when no one is watching? Do you show courage when you are afraid? Failure creates these moments. It tests your character, and in doing so, it gives you the opportunity to strengthen it. Modern self-help often focuses on avoiding failure or quickly turning it into success. Stoicism focuses on learning from failure. When something goes wrong, the Stoic does not ask, "Why did this happen to me?" Instead, they ask, "What can I learn from this?" They treat failure as feedback, as information, as a chance to improve their judgment and actions. This mindset removes the emotional weight of failure. It turns it into a tool for growth. Another important aspect of Stoic thinking is the idea of effort over outcome. You cannot always control whether you succeed, but you can control how much effort you give. You can control your discipline, your preparation, and your attitude. If you give your best effort and the result is still failure, then you have nothing to regret. You did what was within your control. But if you fail because you were careless, lazy, or dishonest, then the failure becomes a lesson about your character. This approach creates responsibility without creating unnecessary guilt. It teaches you to focus on what you can improve, rather than blaming yourself for things outside your control. The Stoics also believe that fear of failure often prevents people from taking action. Many people avoid opportunities because they are afraid of what might happen if they fail. They avoid trying new things. They avoid speaking up. They avoid taking risks. They stay in their comfort zones, not because they are satisfied, but because they are afraid. Stoicism removes this fear by changing the definition of success. If success means external achievement, then failure is terrifying. But if success means acting with virtue, then failure loses its power. You can take risks without fear because your worth is not tied to the outcome. You can try something new, knowing that even if it fails, you will still gain experience, knowledge, and strength. This creates courage. Not the loud, dramatic courage seen in movies, but a quiet, steady courage that allows you to face life's challenges with dignity. In the Stoic view, every failure contains a lesson. Every setback contains an opportunity to strengthen your character. Loss can teach humility. Rejection can teach resilience. Mistakes can teach wisdom. And over time, these lessons build a strong and stable mind. Modern self-help often promises a life without failure. Stoicism promises a life where failure does not destroy you. Modern self-help says, avoid failure and chase success. Stoicism says, face failure, learn from it, and build character. This approach is more realistic, because failure is unavoidable, but suffering from failure is not. When you measure your life by character instead of outcomes, failure becomes less frightening. It becomes part of the journey, not the end of it. You stop asking, did I succeed? And start asking, did I act with virtue? And when you ask that question, failure loses its power. Because as long as your character remains strong, you have not truly failed. And that is the Stoic perspective. Handling criticism and other people's opinions. Few things affect the human mind as strongly as the opinions of others. From childhood, people are taught to seek approval. They are praised for good behavior, rewarded for achievements, and corrected when they make mistakes. Over time, this creates a deep desire to be liked, respected, and accepted. This desire is natural. Humans are social creatures. We depend on each other for survival, support, and connection. But the problem begins when our entire sense of worth becomes dependent on what others think of us. In the modern world, this problem has grown even stronger. Social media has made other people's opinions more visible than ever before. Every post can be liked, shared, criticized, or ignored. Every action can be judged by hundreds or thousands of people. As a result, many people live in constant fear of criticism. They worry about how they look, how they speak, what they say, and how others might react. They become trapped in a cycle of seeking approval. Modern self-help often responds to this by encouraging confidence and self-esteem. It tells people to believe in themselves, to ignore the haters, and to focus on their own path. While this advice can be helpful, it often remains at the surface level. Stoicism goes deeper. It changes the way you think about other people's opinions entirely. The Stoics believe that other people's opinions are outside your control. And if something is outside your control, it should not determine your peace of mind. You cannot control what someone thinks about you. You cannot control what they say. You cannot control how they interpret your actions. You can only control your own behavior. This idea may seem simple, but it has powerful implications. Most people spend a huge amount of mental energy worrying about what others think. They replay conversations in their minds. They imagine how others judge them. They feel anxious about criticism, rejection, or embarrassment. But if you truly accept that other people's opinions are outside your control, that anxiety begins to fade. The Stoics asked a simple question: why should your happiness depend on something you cannot control? If someone praises you, you feel good. If someone criticizes you, you feel bad. In this situation, your emotional state is being controlled by other people. Your peace depends on their words and thoughts. To the Stoics, this was a form of slavery. Not physical slavery, but mental slavery. If someone can insult you and ruin your day, they have power over you. If someone's praise can make you feel valuable, then your sense of worth depends on them. The Stoics believe that a wise person should not hand over their peace so easily. Epictetus once taught that if someone speaks badly of you, you should not be disturbed, because either what they say is true or it is false. If it is true, then you should be grateful for the correction. It gives you a chance to improve. If it is false, then it is not a real reflection of you, and therefore it should not disturb you. In either case, there is no reason to become upset. This perspective creates emotional freedom. It removes the need for constant approval. It allows you to act according to your values rather than according to public opinion. Modern self-help often encourages people to build confidence by thinking highly of themselves. Stoicism builds confidence differently. It builds confidence through character. If you know that you are acting with honesty, courage, and discipline, then criticism loses much of its power. You do not need everyone's approval because you have your own respect. The Stoics did not try to please everyone. They focused on doing what was right. Marcus Aurelius, despite being the emperor of Rome, still faced criticism and political opposition. He knew that not everyone would like him, and he accepted this as a natural part of life. He reminded himself that people have different perspectives, different values, and different judgments. It was impossible to satisfy everyone. Instead of trying to control others' opinions, he focused on controlling his own actions. He asked himself simple questions. Am I acting with justice? Am I acting with wisdom? Am I doing my duty? If the answer was yes, then the opinions of others did not matter. This mindset creates a powerful sense of independence. You are no longer controlled by praise or criticism. You act according to your principles, not according to public opinion. Another important Stoic idea is that criticism is often a reflection of the other person, not of you. People judge based on their own experiences, beliefs, fears, and biases. Two people can look at the same action and interpret it completely differently. One person may see confidence, another may see arrogance, one may see honesty, another may see rudeness. Their judgment is shaped by their own perspective, not just by your actions. When you understand this, criticism becomes less personal. You realize that it is not always a direct reflection of who you are. This does not mean you should ignore all criticism. Some criticism is useful. It can help you grow. It can reveal blind spots in your behavior. The Stoics believed in listening to constructive criticism, but they also believed in filtering it through reason. Is the criticism true? Is it useful? Does it help me become a better person? If the answer is yes, then it is worth considering. If not, it can be ignored. This balanced approach prevents both extremes. It prevents you from becoming overly sensitive to criticism, and it also prevents you from becoming arrogant or dismissive of feedback. Another powerful Stoic idea is the concept of the inner court. The Stoics believe that the only judgment that truly matters is the judgment of your own reason. Instead of seeking approval from the crowd, you seek approval from your own conscience. At the end of the day, you ask yourself, did I act with integrity? Did I treat others fairly? Did I remain disciplined? If the answer is yes, then you have done well, regardless of what others think. This idea creates inner peace. It removes the constant pressure to impress everyone. It allows you to live according to your values rather than according to external approval. Modern self-help often says, ignore the critics and believe in yourself. Stoicism says something more precise. Focus on your character and let criticism fall where it may. It does not encourage blind confidence. It encourages self-examination, discipline, and virtue. When your character becomes your focus, other people's opinions lose their power over you. Praise does not make you arrogant. Criticism does not make you insecure. You remain steady, regardless of what others say. This is true emotional independence. And in a world where people constantly seek approval, this kind of independence is rare and valuable. Because when you stop living for other people's opinions, you finally begin living according to your own principles. And that is where real peace begins. Relationships are one of the most meaningful parts of human life. They bring joy, companionship, support, and connection. They give life warmth and depth. Friendships, family bonds, and romantic relationships often shape our happiest memories. But relationships are also one of the greatest sources of emotional pain. Conflict, misunderstanding, betrayal, rejection, and loss are all part of the human experience. Many of the deepest wounds people carry come from relationships. Modern self-help often approaches relationships by focusing on communication techniques, emotional expression, and compatibility. It teaches people how to attract partners, how to build confidence, and how to maintain strong connections. While much of this advice can be helpful, it often overlooks a deeper issue. Many relationship problems come not from other people, but from our own expectations. People often expect others to behave in certain ways. They expect loyalty, kindness, attention, understanding, and consistency. When these expectations are not met, they feel hurt, angry, or disappointed. The Stoics approached relationships in a very different way. They began with a simple truth. Other people are outside your control. You cannot control their thoughts. You cannot control their emotions. You cannot control their decisions. You can only control your own actions. This idea changes how you experience relationships. Instead of trying to control others, you focus on your own character. Are you being honest? Are you being kind? Are you being fair? Are you acting with patience and understanding? These are the questions a Stoic asks in relationships. Modern thinking often encourages people to seek happiness through others. It suggests that the right partner, the right friends, or the right social circle will bring fulfillment. Stoicism teaches something different. It says that no one else is responsible for your peace of mind. Your peace comes from your own character, not from another person's behavior. This does not mean Stoics avoided relationships. On the contrary, they believe that relationships were a natural and important part of life. Humans are social beings. We are meant to live among others, to cooperate, and to care for one another. But the Stoics believed in loving others without becoming emotionally dependent on them. This idea can be misunderstood. It does not mean becoming cold or distant. It does not mean avoiding emotional connection. It means loving others with awareness rather than attachment. Attachment, in the unhealthy sense, happens when your happiness depends entirely on another person, when their presence defines your peace, when their approval defines your worth. In this state, you become vulnerable to emotional instability. If the relationship goes well, you feel happy. If it goes badly, your peace disappears. The Stoics believe that love should not destroy your inner stability. It should exist alongside it. They practice something similar to negative visualization in relationships. They reminded themselves that the people they loved were not permanent. Not in a pessimistic way, but in a realistic one. They understood that people change. People leave. People pass away. Life is uncertain. By accepting this reality, they learned to appreciate their relationships more deeply. They did not take people for granted. They valued the time they had together. Marcus Aurelius once reminded himself that every time he embraced someone he loved, he should remember that they were mortal. Not to create sadness, but to create appreciation. When you understand that a moment is temporary, you value it more. Another important Stoic idea in relationships is understanding human nature. People are imperfect. They make mistakes. They act out of fear, ignorance, or selfishness. They may hurt you, not because they are evil, but because they are flawed. Marcus Aurelius wrote that when you wake up in the morning, you should expect to meet difficult people who are rude, dishonest, or selfish. Not because the world is terrible, but because this is simply part of human nature. When you expect perfection from others, you will be disappointed. But when you accept that people are imperfect, you become more patient and understanding. This does not mean you allow harmful behavior. Stoicism does not teach passivity. It teaches wisdom. If someone behaves badly, you can set boundaries. You can walk away. You can protect yourself. But you do not need to respond with anger, bitterness, or revenge. You act with dignity, even in difficult situations. Another major source of pain in relationships is the desire to control how others feel about you. People often want to be loved, admired, and respected. When they do not receive these things, they feel rejected. But again, Stoicism reminds us that other people's feelings are not within our control. You can treat someone with kindness, and they may still dislike you. You can give someone your loyalty, and they may still betray you. You can love someone deeply, and they may still leave. These possibilities are part of life. The Stoic approach is to give love freely, without demanding specific outcomes. You act with kindness because it is the right thing to do, not because you are guaranteed a certain response. This creates a different kind of relationship, one based on virtue, not expectation. You become a good friend because it is part of your character. You become a loving partner because it reflects your values. You become a supportive family member because it is the right thing to do. And whatever others choose to do in return is up to them. This approach removes much of the anxiety from relationships. You are no longer trying to control outcomes. You are simply focusing on your own actions. Another powerful Stoic idea is forgiveness. People will hurt you at some point. It is inevitable. But the Stoics believe that holding on to anger harms you more than it harms the other person. Anger disturbs your peace. Resentment consumes your energy. Bitterness keeps you trapped in the past. Forgiveness, in the Stoic sense, is not about excusing bad behavior. It is about freeing yourself from emotional burden. You acknowledge what happened. You learn from it. And then you let go of the anger, so it no longer controls your mind. This is not always easy, but it is freeing. Stoicism also encourages independence in relationships. Not emotional isolation, but inner stability. You should be able to enjoy someone's presence without depending on it for your happiness. You should be able to love someone deeply while still remaining strong if the relationship ends. This creates healthier connections. Because when you are not desperate for approval or attention, you act more calmly, more honestly, and more authentically. You are not trying to control the relationship. You are simply participating in it with virtue. Modern self-help often teaches people how to attract others, impress others, or keep others interested. Stoicism teaches something simpler and deeper. Be a good person. Act with integrity. Treat others fairly. And let relationships develop naturally from there. In the Stoic view, the quality of your relationships depends more on your character than on your techniques. If you are honest, kind, and disciplined, you will naturally build better relationships. And if a relationship still fails, you will know that you acted with virtue, and that knowledge brings peace. Because at the end of the day, you cannot control how others feel. But you can always control how you behave. And that is the Stoic approach to relationships. In our modern world, we're taught to chase wealth as the ultimate prize. Flip through social media, and what do you see? Flashy cars, sprawling mansions, designer everything, and exotic trips. The message is loud and clear. If you have money, you have happiness. The self-help industry often fuels this fire, doesn't it? Countless books, videos, and courses promise to make you rich, whispering that once your bank account is full, all your problems will just melt away. But what if I told you there's an ancient wisdom that completely flips this idea on its head? The Stoics, those ancient Greek and Roman philosophers, had a radically different take on wealth. They weren't against money. They didn't believe you had to live in poverty to be virtuous. Instead, they saw wealth for what it was, a neutral thing. It wasn't inherently good or bad. What truly mattered was your relationship with it. For the Stoics, the only real good in life was virtue, things like wisdom, courage, justice, and self-discipline. Everything else, including money, fame, and comfort, they called preferred indifference. Think of it this way: having money is nice. It's convenient, but it's not essential for a good and meaningful life. You could be perfectly happy and fulfilled without a huge fortune as long as your character was strong. This is a huge departure from how we think today. We often link our happiness directly to our income, assuming that a bigger paycheck will automatically solve our worries. And sure, money can definitely smooth out some of life's rough edges. But it's no guarantee for peace of mind. A person can be incredibly wealthy and still be crippled by anxiety. They can have everything money can buy and still feel profoundly lonely and dissatisfied. History is littered with stories of rich and powerful people who were deeply unhappy. The Stoics knew this. They understood that wealth can create just as many problems as it solves. It brings the fear of losing it all, the constant, draining comparison with others, and a relentless desire for more. Take Seneca, one of the most famous Stoics. He was one of the wealthiest men in Rome, living in absolute luxury and holding immense political power. Yet, he wrote tirelessly about the dangers of becoming attached to money. Seneca believed that wealth was only safe as long as it didn't control your happiness. If the thought of losing your fortune would shatter your inner peace, then your wealth wasn't a strength, it was a profound weakness. To guard against this, Seneca practiced something called voluntary discomfort. Even with all his riches, he would intentionally live as if he were poor. He'd eat simple food, wear plain clothes, and sleep on a hard mat. Why? He was training his mind. He was proving to himself that he could not only survive but thrive without luxury. He wanted to extinguish the fear of losing it all. Because once you realize you can be okay without comfort, comfort loses its grip on you. This ties directly into the Stoic idea of true freedom. For them, real freedom wasn't about having endless choices. It was about independence of the mind. If you need wealth to feel happy, then wealth owns you. If you need luxury to feel content, luxury has you in its chains. If you need status to feel worthy, status is your master. But if you can remain calm, centered, and content without these external things, then you are truly, unshakably free. Modern self-help often pushes us toward purely financial goals, a higher salary, a bigger business. And there's nothing wrong with ambition. The danger comes when we make wealth the very center of our existence. When money becomes the primary goal, our priorities get warped. We might sacrifice our time with family, our relationships, even our health, all in the chase for a bigger number in our bank account. We start measuring our self-worth by our net worth. The Stoics would say this is a critical mistake. Wealth should be a tool that serves your life, not a master that controls it. Money can provide security and open doors, but it should never be the foundation upon which you build your happiness. Why? Because money is fickle. It can vanish in the blink of an eye. Economies crash, jobs are lost, businesses fail, and unexpected disasters strike. If your peace of mind depends on your wealth, your peace will always be fragile, always at risk. But what if you build your peace on something no one can take away? Your character. You might lose your money, but you can still act with dignity. You might face financial hardship, but you can still face it with courage. You might have to live simply, but you can still live a life of virtue. And according to the Stoics, that is what truly matters. This leads to another powerful Stoic concept, sufficiency. Our modern culture is designed to keep us in a state of constant wanting. It tells us we should always be striving for more money, more possessions, more success. It sells us the lie that happiness is just around the corner, waiting for us after the next purchase or the next promotion. The Stoics proposed a revolutionary alternative. Happiness doesn't come from having more, but from wanting less. When your desires are endless, you will always feel poor, no matter how much you have. But when your desires are simple and manageable, you can feel rich even with very little. A person who is content with the basics is free. They aren't trapped on the hamster wheel of endless ambition. This doesn't mean you should abandon your goals or stop trying to improve your life. It simply means understanding that material success is not the source of lasting joy. The Stoics believed the simplest life could be the happiest as long as it was lived with virtue. And what about luxury? Our culture worships it, treating it as the ultimate symbol of success. But the Stoics saw luxury as a potential trap, not because it was immoral, but because it creates dependency. When you get used to constant comfort, any discomfort starts to feel like suffering. When you're accustomed to luxury, a simple life can feel like a punishment. This breeds fear of losing your comfort, fear of losing your status, fear of losing your wealth. The Stoics wanted to be free from that fear. By training themselves to be comfortable with discomfort, by choosing simplicity even when they could afford extravagance, they built a powerful kind of inner fortitude. A person who is content with a simple life isn't afraid of losing their money. A person who can handle hardship isn't afraid of what the future holds. They are strong, resilient, and stable, no matter what their external circumstances look like. So, here's the fundamental difference. Modern self-help often says, become wealthy and you will be happy. Stoicism offers a different promise. It says, build your character and you will be stable and content, whether you are wealthy or not. This doesn't make money irrelevant. It just puts it in its proper place. Wealth is a useful tool, but it's not essential. Comfort is pleasant, but it's not necessary for a good life. Luxury is enjoyable, but it's not the source of real happiness. Your character, your virtue is what truly matters. When you build your life around that solid foundation, wealth becomes a bonus, not a requirement. You can enjoy it when you have it without depending on it for your well-being. And if it disappears, your peace remains intact. Because your peace was never built on something as unstable as money. It was built on your character. And that is something no one and no circumstance can ever take away from you. Thanks for watching. If this idea resonated with you, hit that subscribe button for more insights on living a wiser, more resilient life. In the modern world, motivation has become almost like a daily necessity. Many people feel that they cannot act, cannot work, and cannot change their lives unless they feel motivated first. They search for videos, quotes, podcasts, and books that give them an emotional push. They want that surge of energy that makes everything seem possible again. For a brief moment, motivation feels powerful. It creates excitement. It fills the mind with big visions and bold plans. It makes people feel confident, capable, and ready to change their lives. It creates the illusion of transformation before any real transformation has actually taken place. But motivation has a hidden weakness. It is emotional, and emotions are temporary. Think about how motivation usually works. A person watches an inspiring video. They hear powerful music. They listen to a story about someone who overcame incredible odds. They feel energized. Their heart beats faster. Their mind fills with ideas. They tell themselves that tomorrow will be different. The next day, they wake up early. They start a new routine. They exercise, study, or work with enthusiasm. It feels like a fresh start, but after a few days, the excitement fades. The routine becomes ordinary. The energy disappears. The mind begins to resist the effort. The same habits slowly return. And the person begins to feel disappointed in themselves. So they search for more motivation. This cycle has become extremely common. Many people now rely on motivation the same way they rely on caffeine. They need a regular dose just to function. Without it, they feel stuck, tired, or uninspired. But this dependence on motivation creates a serious problem. It trains the mind to act only when it feels good. If you only work when you feel motivated, you will work very little. Because most of life does not feel exciting. Most of life is ordinary. Most progress is slow, repetitive, and sometimes boring. The Stoics understood this long before modern psychology did. They knew that emotions are unstable. They knew that inspiration comes and goes. And they knew that a life built on emotional energy would always be inconsistent. That is why Stoicism does not rely on motivation. It relies on discipline. Discipline is very different from motivation. Motivation is emotional. Discipline is structural. Motivation depends on how you feel. Discipline depends on what you have decided. When you are motivated, you act because you feel like it. When you are disciplined, you act because it is the right thing to do. Discipline does not disappear when you are tired. It does not fade when you are stressed. It does not depend on excitement. It is built on habits, routines, and principles. Imagine two people who both want to improve their lives. The first person relies on motivation. They work hard when they feel inspired. But when they feel tired, discouraged, or distracted, they stop. Their progress is inconsistent. Some days they do a lot. Other days they do nothing. The second person relies on discipline. They work even when they do not feel like it. They follow their routine regardless of their mood. Their progress is slow but steady. Over time, they move much further than the first person. This is the difference between emotional action and principled action. Modern self-help often focuses on emotional action. It tries to make you feel powerful so that you will act. Stoicism focuses on principled action. It teaches you to act based on reason, not emotion. The Stoics believe that emotions are not reliable guides. They change too quickly. They are influenced by sleep, stress, weather, other people, and countless small factors. If your life is guided only by how you feel, it will be chaotic. Instead, they believed in living according to reason and virtue. They believe that a person should decide what is right and then act accordingly, regardless of how they feel. This approach creates stability. It removes the need for constant motivation. You do not need to feel inspired to do what is right. You do not need to feel excited to keep your promises. You do not need to feel energetic to act with discipline. You simply do it because it is your duty. This idea may sound harsh at first. It may seem less exciting than modern motivational messages, but in reality, it is far more freeing. When you depend on motivation, you are constantly waiting for the right feeling. You are always searching for inspiration. You are always hoping for that emotional spark. But when you rely on discipline, you no longer need that spark. You simply act. And over time, action itself creates confidence. Confidence does not come from motivational speeches. It comes from repeated effort. It comes from doing difficult things again and again until they become part of who you are. The Stoics believe that character is built through consistent action, not emotional excitement. They compared life to physical training. A person does not become strong by feeling motivated once. They become strong by lifting weights regularly, even when they do not feel like it. In the same way, a person becomes mentally strong by practicing discipline, patience, courage, and self-control every day. Another problem with constant motivation is that it often creates unrealistic expectations. Motivational content tends to show dramatic transformations. It highlights extreme success stories. It focuses on extraordinary achievements. This creates the impression that change should be fast, dramatic, and visible. But real change is usually slow and quiet. Real growth often looks like this: waking up early, even when you feel tired. Doing your work even when it feels boring. Staying calm even when someone is rude to you. Choosing discipline over comfort, again and again. These actions are not exciting. They do not create dramatic stories. But over time, they shape your character. And character is what determines the quality of your life. Modern motivation often focuses on the future. It tells you to imagine the person you will become, the success you will achieve, the life you will create. While this can be inspiring, it can also create dissatisfaction with the present. You begin to feel that your current life is not enough. You become obsessed with future success. You start to believe that happiness exists somewhere ahead in a future version of your life. Stoicism takes a different approach. It focuses on the present moment. It teaches that the only thing that truly matters is how you act right now. You cannot control the future. You cannot change the past. You only have control over your present actions. So instead of asking, "Will I succeed?" the Stoic asks, "Am I acting with virtue right now?" This question is far more practical. It removes the anxiety of the future. It brings your attention back to what you can actually control. Another weakness of constant motivation is that it often creates dependency. People begin to feel that they cannot act without external inspiration. They become consumers of motivation rather than creators of discipline. They watch video after video, waiting for the one that will finally change everything. But the real change does not come from watching. It comes from doing. The Stoics believe that philosophy should be practical. It should not just exist in books or speeches. It should be practiced daily in ordinary situations. It should appear in how you respond to criticism, in how you handle disappointment, in how you treat other people, in how you deal with stress and uncertainty. This is where Stoicism becomes powerful. It is not about emotional excitement. It is about daily practice. And daily practice creates lasting change. Motivation may help you start, but discipline is what keeps you going. Motivation may give you energy, but discipline gives you direction. Motivation is temporary. Discipline is lasting. Motivation is emotional. Discipline is rational. Motivation comes and goes. Discipline remains. This is why Stoicism focuses on discipline rather than motivation. Because discipline is what actually works when life becomes difficult, and life will become difficult. That is inevitable. There will be days when you feel tired, discouraged, or lost. There will be moments when motivation is nowhere to be found. And in those moments, discipline is what carries you forward. The Stoics did not wait to feel inspired. They acted according to their principles. They built their lives on habits, not emotions. They trusted discipline more than motivation. And that is why their philosophy has endured for thousands of years. Because it is not built on feelings. It is built on reality.